moved into the winery in 2015. We went from nothing, having never sold wine in this country before, to going to Bloom, which is the biggest event in the country. There were about 110,000 people at the 2016 Bloom event. We're the only ones who do this in all of Ireland. There are just a couple of grape wine guys out there who do small amounts of wine, but we're the only ones who do berry wine. It took us a year from the time we moved in to the time we had it bottled and went to Bloom, and then we were off and running. But we only had the one wine, the strawberry wine. This one is the blackberry, and this one is the raspberry. Okay, now they all came at different times. The blackberry was the next one that came on stream about a year and a half in, and the raspberry about another year and a half. So it takes time to do R&D and get them right. There were a ton of challenges to open up a winery here. First of all, there's only a couple of people who've done grape wines. There's no precedent for what we do. So there were so many things to get on board. We had to figure out, could we call it a wine? Yes, we can. We also had to develop a market because people didn't really understand what berry wines are all about. They're like, berry wines, you know. But there's a great history in Ireland for berry wines, hedgerow wines, country wines as they're usually known, which are done in small batches. So almost without fail, we go to an event and someone comes up and says, oh, my grandmother made gooseberry wine or blackberry wine or something, you know, and they always get a bit shocked when I'll say, well, did she use water? And they're like, yeah. And I said, well, we don't use any water in our wine. These are made entirely from the berries that we say they're from. You know, it makes it for a much more intense experience because they're very flavorful. They don't get dumbed down at all. And, you know, there are no grapes in there whatsoever. So the pandemic has wreaked havoc on every industry in the world. Our tourism disappeared overnight. Actually reopened in the middle for a short period and then shut down again. We were doing pods like this table. You might have 3 or 4 people at this table, and another one over there, you might have 3 or 4 people. So we were keeping smaller groups so everyone can be socially isolated. It's actually, strangely, other than the tourism disappearing, it benefited us because people started buying wine online all the time. So we actually ran short on stock. And then with all of the stuff that's happening in the world, it was hard to get the supplies we needed in order to get testing solutions and things for our testing station in the office that we needed in order to get the wine into bottles. Strawberry wine's about 11% alcohol, as is the blackberry. The raspberry is about 10%. People are looking for a lower alcohol wine just so that they can go out for the night and enjoy themselves and have a few glasses of wine without kind of being on their ear by the end of the night. The recommended temperatures are very similar to, say, a white wine in temperature. On this one, on the bottle, I say 6 to 8 Celsius. Now, I personally like this colder, but that's just my personal choice. I like it coming out of the fridge. It's almost sacrilegious, but 2 to 4 degrees, which suppresses the aromas. But as it opens up in the glass, suddenly you get an aromatic that you didn't have when it first came out. But I like the original crispness of the wine. The blackberry and raspberry, on the other hand, don't need to be refrigerated at all. So they would be probably more in the 17, 18 degree range. We've had wine since the day we opened, so I have the original bottles that we bottled when we started. As long as you store wine, as any wine would be stored, on its side, since they have corks in them, you just want to keep the cork wet. If you want to lay this wine down to drink in 5 years, you can do that. I couldn't actually honestly tell anyone once upon a time when we opened up. People would ask me the question, how long can the wine be kept? I didn't have an answer for them. My wife and I made wine for ourselves. So you make wine, you drink it within the year and it's gone and you make more. We never laid wine down. So now I know that 5 years later, not only are they okay, but in many respects, sometimes they get better. They do age well. So the strawberry is really good with things like salmon, chicken, pesto, salads, Thai food, Indian, anything spicy, goat cheese or cheddar, so milder cheeses. Whereas the blackberry and raspberry are better with things like fillet steak and duck and game and strong cheeses like gorgonzolas and blues. We had Charles and Camilla twice now come to Ireland on their royal visit, and we've created a Kir Royale from the raspberry with a champagne, a Camel Valley Brut, and blended it together to create a drink for them, which we call the Juck of Cornwall. Juck is drink in Irish, so it was kind of a play on words as opposed to the Duke of Cornwall.